There is so much to celebrate today, and I want to take a second to celebrate this bulletin. Hello! Do we love it? Yeah. Please do me a favor and look at the front. There's this picture of a bird soaring, and it says, "The Jubilee is a time of Sabbath rest, homecoming, and release. It involves the return of land to its original owners, the freeing of Israelite slaves, and the forgiveness of debts." Here at Plymouth, we have really leaned into the idea of Jubilee as homecoming. This first Jubilee Sunday is a celebration of that. Some of us are returning to church after a busy summer. We are returning to regular Sunday school, youth group, and adult formation programming. And that feels like coming home to me. But this month, we're going to spend more time with the idea of Jubilee. We want to lean into the fullness of Jubilee, and we're starting with these stories out of the Gospel of Mark. This story where Jesus calls a woman a dog. Now here's the deal. This woman was not Jewish. And the text says she was Greek. And there was a belief that some people who weren't Jewish were so unspiritual that even being in their presence could make you unclean, ceremoniously unclean. And so in Jesus' day, they sometimes referred to unspiritual people as dogs. The word that Jesus uses here was a slightly more endearing Greek word, meaning small dog or pet dog. Yeah. So yeah, he's being intense. But I also think maybe he's trying to make a point with some satire or some teasing. Maybe. Really, Jesus was wrestling with the idea that the priority of his ministry at that time was to the people of Israel. And so what she says is, Jesus, you are enough for all of us. There is enough food for the children and the pets. There is enough of you for everyone who needs you. Amen? Jesus knew his disciples and the women around him were watching this whole interaction, waiting to see how he would respond to this non-Jewish woman. And Jesus turned their cultural expectation on its head. The idea that non-Jewish people are unclean or dogs is a kind of cultural othering that still happens. And here we have another story of Jesus healing, helping, freeing, bringing wholeness to someone on the margins of his society. Who is on the margins of our society? There are too many answers to that question. A lot of today's liturgy and these stories from Mark talk about people with different abilities or with disabilities. In our ableist society, these people are marginalized. And when Jesus met this man who was deaf and couldn't speak, he made this personal, intimate connection where even his spit was part of the holy healing process. And then he said, "Open up." How might we open up to people who are on the margins? How might we bring them into the center? I read this book called Care Work, Dreaming Disability Justice. And the author put forward the idea that accessibility should be rooted in radical love. And I want to put forward the idea on this Jubilee Sunday that accessibility is freedom. In my particular work with children and youth, I have lots of conversations about how worship is not always accessible developmentally to children and youth. Their attention spans are shorter. Their learning modalities are different. And that is all okay and good and beautiful, and it's on us. It's the work of the church to open up and make space for their difference. So I want to talk about playgrounds. A playground is a designated place in the front of the sanctuary where young children can experience worship through worship materials and tools that will help keep them engaged in what's happening. In ours, we have children's books and Bibles, coloring and drawing materials, soft toys like a little nativity scene, and other fun things. Children are able to process what they hear more effectively when their hands are busy. Me too. Children acquire the language of worship by listening to and observing the words the adults around them say, kind of like how they learn to talk. Some like to think of playgrounds as an accommodation, like a wheelchair or a hearing aid, to help children access worship. Playgrounds say even more loudly than Sunday school programs, children are welcome here. This is radical hospitality for our youngest congregants. I started this conversation with the Christian Formation Board, and we've been practicing this as a church with our makeshift playground on special Sundays and this whole summer. And a few months ago, I talked with our board of deacons about making it more permanent. They helped pick out the particular place, the beautiful rug, and the furniture to match, all to make sure that the playground felt like it always belonged in this space. And then we asked the trustees to take out the pews, to open up the space, and help us get ready. And they did that so fast. This act of radical hospitality is not without sacrifice. The people who used to sit in those pews are sacrificing their usual spot, and for that, I thank you. And I apologize that we didn't warn you. Spots are important, I know. On top of that, time and energy and love, and maybe some spit, were all poured into creating this so that children could be free to access church in the way that they need. This whole story is a beautiful example to me of what's possible when we come together. When our church comes together, we create this amazing mosaic, this overflow of love and abundance that Jesus modeled. Good things happen. I wonder, how else can we open up? How can we bring about rest, homecoming, release, redemption, freedom, accessibility, forgiveness? How can we bring about Jubilee? At the end of these stories from Mark, people were overcome with wonder, saying, Jesus does everything well. He even makes the deaf hear and gives speech to those who can't speak. As we follow the way of Jesus, what can we make possible? Amen.